Welcome back. You're tuning in to Financial Fitness Northwest live on 1150 KKNW, where we help you navigate the mortgage and real estate market with expert advice from knowledgeable and trustworthy industry professionals. Next up on our show, we have Sheri Putzke. Welcome, Sheri.
Thank you.
Sheri is ranked the top realtor in both sales and volume in Kirkland-Redmond area. She's consistently earned a 5-star professional rating in Seattle Magazine from both her clients and peers. When working with buyers, Sheri is dedicated to helping them find and procure just the right property. For sellers, she creates a well-organized marketing strategy that maximizes their property's value by positioning their home to stand out in the marketplace. Sheri is a longtime resident of the East Side with over 12 years' experience in both new construction and residential resale throughout the greater Seattle area. Sheri's motto, stay humble, work hard, be kind, which is why her success is based on her clients' repeat business and referrals, and she greatly values the friendships that continue well after the keys exchange hands.
Indeed.
So we're excited to have you, Sheri.
Thank
Yes,
you again.
welcome. I love your motto.
I do too.
Thank you.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's perfect. So tell us, how did you get into real estate?
Actually, I got into it as a result of my husband. He is a builder.
Oh, okay.
And he originally had a partner in his business, and his wife, his partner's wife was an agent. And when my husband bought out his partner, I got my license and have
perfect.
been doing it ever since.
Nice. So do you guys do a lot of business together?
We do. He's a small builder, so he just does a couple of houses a year. So he's a small part of my business, but he's a great member of my team and a good resource for me, and hopefully I am to him as well.
Yeah, I bet. So is that what got you into, primarily new construction then?
Not necessarily. When I joined Windermere, I started working new construction for builders and sat site. And that's how I grew my business, just an opportunity to meet unrepresented buyers, and whether that particular community was a fit for them or not, I had the opportunity to work with them elsewhere and help them find the perfect home.
Right.
I was kind of thinking that maybe you met your husband because you became a realtor and you were sitting side on one of his for his homes, but it didn't happen that way, huh? So you met him and then you got in the industry after.
Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You're such a romantic mom. You're like making up a
I know. I was ready for a really good story.
I can go with that.
I even wrote it down in my notes like, I'm going to ask about how you met your husband. But then now you just clarified. So.
Well, so can you talk to us a little bit about the differences from new construction to resale?
There's a lot of differences, but just to highlight a few of them, oftentimes the timeline is quite different. In a resale purchase, you're oftentimes, if finance, looking at a 30 to 45 day closing. New construction, if you buy pre-sale, it can be 12 to 18 months in some cases. There's not a lot of finished new construction product in this market.
Yeah.
That can be a shorter timeline, more typical of the 30 to 45 days. But again, pre-sale is much longer. Another difference is the opportunity to customize. And again, the more customization, the earlier you are in the process, sometimes that can be a structural change, converting a loft to another bedroom, and a third bay of a garage to a main floor bedroom, and smaller things like granite and kitchen upgrades and things of that nature. So that's a lot of fun for buyers. And one of the primary differences between new and resale is the warranty that the builders oftentimes offer, and it can be very attractive to new home buyers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of nice. So, you're not going out there and acquiring your land and building your house. They're building it for you with their plans, but you do have the ability to make some structural changes.
Right,
So
or pick your plan, pick your home site.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's exciting.
It is. Yes, very
You just
fun.
have to wait for it.
You do have to wait. Yes, there is that.
So do you find, there's a lot of a little bit more customized builders that do that, and I think from what I've seen, there are a lot of smaller builders now. It seems like there's more than there used to be.
Market's
and then there's,
good. Sure.
And then there's just the few, big nationals. So
Correct.
do you work with any of the big nationals as much, or is it more the...
I do. I
Do
work
you?
with both big and small, and the process is quite different with both of them on many levels. The contracts are different. The whole experience for the buyer, and you're right, custom is different than spec. Custom is, I have this piece of land. Mr. Builder, can you help me build my dream home on it? Whereas spec is a little bit more defined in terms of what your options are.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been my experience with the bigger national builders that they're kind of like a little bit more cookie cutter. They don't let you
Yes.
have the design freedom that you might with a little bit more customized builder.
It does vary from one builder to the next. Some offer more customization than others, but you're right.
Yeah.
We just had clients that purchased a home in Black Diamond, and it was a small community, I think 10 houses, and they did some really cool custom things in there, which I thought was so cool, because then their house, it's in this, little neighborhood where they all look similar, but they had some really neat architectural details in the home that the builder let them do. They just, Pinterested, I guess, and came up with these really cool ideas. So I'd never seen that before. I mean, they literally turned a garage, a drive-through garage. Their garage has 2 doors. They're in their backyard and in their front yard.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
a huge garage. Yeah, my husband was very jealous, but yeah. So I mean, I think that's unique. You don't really see that. I think this market, because you have smaller builders, is really nice for new home buyers to have those options.
You can make your home more of a reflection of you versus some builders. This is our beige template, and
Right.
Exactly, the old cookie cutter. And
right.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about timeline? Let's talk a little bit about what people can expect. I have someone right now actually who's making an offer on a Pulte home.
Okay.
And they are releasing so many lots, right? And so they gave them a timeline of February to August of 2018.
Oh, wow.
It's all about flexibility. It really is. And oftentimes the builders are at the mercy of the cities. And so many times when they release home sites, they don't have the permit for the home. And oftentimes the city will set an expectation that it's a 6 to 8 week turn time, and when in fact it takes 10 to 12 and sometimes longer, which obviously impacts the final product. And that's just the city timeline. And then once you start construction, obviously it's very active market right now, and contractors get behind schedule, or the schedule slips, and it impacts the whole timeline. So you do need to be flexible, and many times, as you said, when you sign that contract, it's an estimate for that closing date, and in many cases you don't get an actual closing date till you're about 60 days from completion. So it does take some flexibility.
Yeah.
So if you have a house to sell, that can be a little bit tricky, right?
Well,
the timing of that?
Yes, exactly. Kind of a blessing and a curse. And if the market's appreciating, maybe you end up getting more for your home as a result of having waited. But yes, doing that finite timing with a sale, especially if you need those funds out of the house, can be, like you said, a little bit tricky.
A little bit tricky.
Builders are more apt to accept a contingent offer versus a resale property. Is that fair to say? Or
well, in a pre-sale, yes, because obviously you have more than enough time to sell the home, and it's a hot market for sellers, and so the likelihood of selling the home is much higher. So there's less risk for sure for the builder,
which is nice for people that have to sell their home first, because it's really hard out there no one's accepting contingent offers.
In the resale market,
right?
You're right.
In the resale
you don't
market.
stand a chance, and that's another benefit of buying new versus, yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about financing.
Yes.
And how that can really differ between resale and pre-sale.
Yeah, quite a few differences. Generally, when a lender provides a rate quote, it's good for 60 days. And if you buy pre-sale, you might need, well, usually people float their rate, assuming that there's no expectation of a significant increase. Some lenders do offer an extended rate lock, which sometimes buyers, if they're concerned about or they're tight on their margins, they might be inclined to go with an extended rate lock option. Sometimes there's a preferred lender with the specific builders. Usually the larger builders sometimes have that. Sometimes there's incentives for using that and using them rather, and other times not. So it is a little bit different process with financing new construction.
Yeah, we we kind of like to. I mean, a lot of the nationals, they actually have their own in-house lender that is, a branch of their company, which is always interesting to me. But
sure,
especially with all the compliance and so forth that is out there. But we've found that depending on who the builder is, many times, Caliber, because we do have a builder platform, we can compete with what maybe their preferred lender is doing. But do you see that the builders are having a harder time enforcing, saying you have to go with our lender to get this discount?
I don't think they can actually say that you have to. Oftentimes they require an application with them,
right?
And they want to compete, obviously, for the business. But most buyers will shop, right? I mean, They're value oriented, and they'll take into consideration what the builder is offering, but oftentimes speak with other lenders as well to see what they have to offer.
Yeah, which is a good thing to do, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
And Caliber does have long-term locks. So
yes.
that's an option.
And one other thing too, since you were on that pre-qualification, we actually with our program, when we do a pre-approval up front, we don't have to recheck docs and reapprove them when if it's 4 months down the road.
Right.
We don't have to redo that. So that really can help too in case someone's situation maybe is changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it just makes the process a lot simpler for the client because they get underwritten initially before their home's even done, and then that's it.
Right.
That's it.
Well, oftentimes the financing contingency with the builders is quite short too, so they would want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But a lot of times lenders will do that, but then towards the end they go back and re-underwrite the loan and require all updated documentation, whereas Caliber does not.
We do
That
not
is
do
nice.
that.
Yeah.
That is great.
So it makes it really nice. But I think I definitely having a conversation with the lender and finding out what their rate options are, because I think that's a huge factor.
Yeah.
Being able to long-term lock in this market.
Absolutely.
What about earnest money? Sometimes I've seen the earnest money quite a bit higher with new construction.
It
Oh,
is.
yeah.
It varies, and I see the full spectrum. Oftentimes 5% for, and that gets released early into the contract on a pre-sale. It's non-refundable after sometimes as early as 45 days on a 6-month, 8-month, 12-month contract. So yes, that's something that you want to keep in mind.
Definitely on a high-priced home, that could be a
Yes,
lot of money.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Of course, I think the builders putting, it's a good faith gesture, right? And if you're
Absolutely.
serious, it's all going to your down payment. So
Right, and buyers are making custom options, and that, depending upon what those options are, may or may not make the house easy to resell in the
Right.
event of buyer default. So they certainly are entitled to that in that unlikely scenario.
Right.
Yeah. That makes sense. So what about inspection?
That's a good question. A lot of times people don't assume that you would need an inspection with new construction. Obviously, the city is inspecting the home throughout the construction phase, but it's really important, and a lot of builders are great about working with a buyer inspection. Most builders do a walkthrough prior to closing, but things come up in the inspection. In the walkthrough with your builder, you're not down in the crawl space, you're not up in the attic, you're not walking on your roof. You want to make sure that somebody else is looking out in those areas on your behalf, and the builders are great about addressing things that need to be taken care of. So I strongly, strongly encourage buyers to do that.
So they would do an inspection like towards the close,
Exactly.
the home being completed, like at closing almost, right?
Just prior to, exactly. Usually before that walkthrough, so that you can discuss those items with your builder during the walkthrough.
Oh, that's nice. I don't know that I've had anyone do an inspection on new construction.
I have, and I had one where they discovered something major, and it was so many years ago I can't remember. I mean, I think it was something like the sewer wasn't hooked up properly, or it was some kind of major thing. And it, when you think about it, we're all just humans, right? Everybody's doing a job,
Sure,
and
right.
even though it's new, someone could miss something, just like
Absolutely.
So-
I have had water come through light fixtures in the kitchen during an inspection just because the plumbing wasn't hooked up in the master bathroom upstairs. I have found, or an inspector has found, no insulation in the attic. You'd be surprised. Things come up, and it's just great to have an extra set of eyes on things to avoid any surprises.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the other side of that too is that, you're so excited, the buyer's so excited about their new home, and, they're doing their walkthrough. They
Right.
do a walkthrough, right?
Yes.
And they might not be noticing things that
Right.
an inspector is going to notice, because they're just like, oh, I'm going to put this here, and my couch is going to go there. And,
Absolutely.
they're
Their
not really.
head is elsewhere, for
Yeah,
sure.
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So why is it, let's talk about working with an agent that's familiar in new construction and what value you bring versus working with someone that, doesn't have that expertise.
Sure. I think your point, Patricia, regarding the walkthrough is a good one. Buyers don't know what to look for, and it's the little blue tape items. It's the questions to ask about the process. What happens once I have the keys and I have issues with my home. So that's one point. Another would be the contracts are often quite different that the builders use versus on a resale transaction, and so just being familiar with those contracts and the process. So it's both the understanding the product, the house, and the construction process, and the process are very different in resale. And working with an agent that understands that and can help walk the buyer through it, I think, is really valuable.
Right. I think even more so than that, too. I mean, it's a long process, right?
It can be,
And
certainly.
if it, and so having someone advocating for you and like your liaison between the builder, because I just had the guy that's actually making an offer on this Pulte home. He was just going to go straight through them. And I said, no, you need to have someone advocating for you.
Exactly.
Right.
Working on your behalf.
Yeah.
Yes.
That understands the process.
Correct.
Otherwise, it could, I'm sure, get really overwhelming. And there's, money you could leave on the table, things you could miss, right?
Absolutely.
Because there is still negotiations to be had for upgrades and things like that throughout the process.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's really important to work with an expert like
Indeed.
yourself.
Yes, indeed.
And so when you're working with someone that is purchasing a new home, you're there doing do you do the frame walk and do you do all the walks with them?
I do. I really do. If they want me there, I'm absolutely there. I'll go to the design studio with them too. I like to just be able to answer questions. A lot of times people are wondering if it makes sense to spend the extra money to add the granite and the countertop. Where is my best return on investment? And I'm happy to be involved in that process.
Yeah, I think that's like a huge benefit too.
I think so, too.
Just, and plus since you're, I'm sure being in new construction and your husband's a builder and all that, I mean, you're just so connected to that whole world where other people just probably, they're not going to know.
Yeah, if a buyer hasn't been through that process before, it's very different. I mean, they might not know what a truss or a foundation or a fascia is, and just understanding those components and walking a buyer through the process, I think, is really valuable.
I agree. And just knowing I think what you said about getting your return on the things you put into the house
Absolutely.
is really huge. Because, I mean, as a buyer, we just want all the new fancy things. We don't know what's really going to get us the best return in the market.
Certainly.
So let's talk about the benefits of new construction. Obviously, having a brand new house is a benefit. No one's ever lived in or
No
farted
fixer-upper.
in. Yeah.
Exactly.
What are the other benefits?
Well, I mean, it's a tough market. I mean, new construction can be a nice reprieve from this crazy resale market that we have. And so less likelihood of a multiple offer situation. They do still happen, but again, not quite as commonly as the resale market. And the fact that it's new, like you said, I mean, everything is clean and never been used before, and pretty. Buyers like that, obviously.
You also have a little bit of ability to, like you said before, customize it a little bit versus buying a home that's, done.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, just
So
like I said,
put your touches
making
on it.
Yes, exactly. A reflection of yourself. Oftentimes, especially in this market with prices appreciating like they do, many times my clients have had equity in their home by the time they've closed on their home. Just because you pay the price at contract, you have a 12-month build time, and the market's gone up during that time, and I see that quite commonly, which is a nice little perk.
Oh, that's a huge perk, especially if you're, if it's a multi houses in the plat and you're one of the first ones. Right?
Yes.
You're really going to get the most benefit.
For sure.
Bang for your buck.
Yeah,
Little
definitely.
inconvenience with construction if you're an early bird, but definitely benefits in the long term.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you,
I appreciate
Sheri.
you
That
ladies
was
having me.
Yeah, that was really great information.
Really informative.
So thank you for tuning in to Financial Fitness Northwest. When we come back from the break, we will have Julio Cortez with Cocoon House, who works to help and provide support for the at-risk and homeless youth and their families in Snohomish County. To find out more about topics discussed on today's show, you can find us online at www.financialfitnessnw.com.